Well, good morning, everyone. I'm John Barella, and I'm privileged to serve as the CEO for the Borderplex Alliance. I want to welcome all of you to this very, very important meeting, and I'm grateful for your attendance and the time that you're spending with us this morning. For those of you who don't know, the Borderplex Alliance is a privately funded organization, and to my knowledge, the only privately funded organization that represents 3 states and 2 countries. Our Borderplex region that we represent course consists of Ciudad Juarez, El Paso County, and my home county of Doñana County, New Mexico. We not only serve as the economic development lead organization for our region of 2.7 million people, we're also the policy advocacy group for this region as well. We engage in policy advocacy in Washington, D.C., Mexico City when needed, and we've been able to work on very, very important issues on your behalf with respect to the USMCA ratification, fighting the border adjustment tax, which would have just wiped out many of your businesses, and several others we're engaged in now, including immigration reform and others that happen to affect all 3 geographies. I first want to thank very, very much the hard work of the Borderplex Alliance staff. Natalie Littlefield, who is our Vice President for Strategy, did an amazing job last year putting together the Ascend 2025 plan, which is a regional blueprint for economic growth and advocacy in our region. And she worked tirelessly on that and was really an army of one putting that together. I know many of you helped with your opinions and advice on that blueprint. But nevertheless, it was good hard work done by her, and we appreciate that effort very much. We have a new team member as well, Christian Diaz, who's helping organize and helping us with the implementation of many of the ideas that came through. 139 goals and objectives in that plan, well thought out and well done. We thank Natalie, Christian, and all of you who participated in that process. And finally, I want to just, again, conclude by saying that all of you and what you do are absolutely critical to the economic growth and vibrancy of our region. Our region is the 5th largest manufacturing hub in North America. Almost 300,000 employees are engaged in manufacturing at one level or another in our region. And we need to continue that momentum. We cannot rest on our laurels on our growth. We have been moving up that ranking very quickly, especially in the last 10 years. We just surpassed Detroit, Windsor as the 5th largest manufacturing hub in North America. And I see some outstanding opportunities with reshoring from China or certain parts of Asia and other manufacturing demands post-COVID. But as you all know, the manufacturing world changes rapidly. Whether it be AI, robotics, we need to stay and keep pace in not only policies that affect us, but obviously in workforce development and other crucial areas. And that's why we're here today, to launch this great initiative, the Supplier Association. And I look forward to working with you to continue the growth, our upward trajectory on employment. And I just want to say, again, thanks for being here with us. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Natalie.
Well, thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. I am Natalie Littlefield, the Vice President of Strategy with the Borderplex Alliance. And I just want to welcome you to this meeting today. I'm very excited to launch this new supplier association. And what we're doing today is actually talking about the scope of activities for the Supplier Association, what areas we're going to be focusing on. We are definitely interested in providing programming and as much value as possible to local companies. And so we've defined through the strategic planning process, we have defined those areas where we feel we can make the most impact through the association. And so today we're going to talk about what the scope is, what areas we're going to focus on, and then we're going to focus on those areas through our presentations today. We have wonderful speakers, one from EXIM Bank to talk about the value of exporting on both sides of the border. And also we're going to talk about advanced technology and its importance to local companies. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of information first and sort of tee up those two presentations that I think are going to be wonderful presentations. So first of all, I wanted to talk about what we're doing with the Supplier Association. And again, this was defined through the strategic planning process. And if you're interested in learning more how these are integrated into the larger economic development strategy, please feel free to download the 2025 Ascend Strategic Plan from our website. So the Supplier Association aims to empower the region's suppliers through educational programming on exporting and advanced technology and providing value through business consulting and industry strengthening special initiatives. Next slide, please. So your points of contact for the association, I think we're lagging a little bit on the presentation. There we go. Your 2 points of contact are, of course, myself. I am the lead on developing the programming for the association. I'm also your main point of contact. If you want to engage in any of the areas, I'd be your main point of contact. I'm also working with Christian Diaz, our new Industry Council Coordinator, and I'll pass it to him to talk a little bit about his role.
Thank you, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. In my role as Industry Council Coordinator, I oversee the Binational Technology Council, as well as the Supplier Association. As Natalie said, I'll be your other point of contact for any information or any other questions that you have in regard to the association. I'm extremely excited to work with you all this year, and we have an exciting lineup of events and speakers lined up for 2021.
Okay, so the first slide shows the overview of the 4 areas that we're going to be focusing on for the Supplier Association. First of all, we're going to have an education program around exporting. We've already developed a program for the full year 2021. We are also going to be focusing on a Binational Technology Forum, and that will be co-led by the Binational Technology Council. We'll get into that in a second. We'll have a series of special initiatives that were identified through the 2025 Ascend Plan, and those will be in support of companies and the industry. And finally, we'll be offering business consulting services. So first, we'll focus on exporting, and we'll talk a little bit why exporting is so important.
Yeah, so the exporting education program is, we identified as one of the most important aspects of the Supplier Association. After speaking to numerous experts in the field, we came up with a series of goals as well as a series of special topics that we felt necessary to cover this year. The first of our goals is to equip small businesses with the knowledge they need in order to increase their exporting capacity. Next is to increase the number of banks that are willing and able to finance these exporting initiatives. And finally, the goal is ultimately to increase the number of exports in the region. We invite all suppliers, manufacturers, banks, and logistics companies who have any interest or just want to expand their knowledge in exporting to participate in these. As we said before, we spoke to numerous individuals to identify these topics that we felt are imperative in order to increase your exporting capability. The first is, how can small to medium-sized businesses leverage the new chapter, the new USMCA chapter on small businesses for exporting? And how do we leverage e-commerce for exporting? And also, we're gonna be able to help you identify different grants and different other resources that are gonna help you expand these capabilities as well. And our topic for today, accessing trade financing and risk insurance. And finally, how do we develop a successful exporting strategy? Which brings us to the important question, why exporting? What is the value of exporting? Why are we placing such a major emphasis on it? John talked about it when John talked about it in his speech, but in a report put in by the United States Chamber of Commerce between 2016 and 2018, average revenues for exporters, for small business exporters, increased by 24.3%, as compared to only a 14.1% increase for non-exporting businesses. That's significant. And more than 2/3 of exporters have fewer than 20 employees, so 97% are small to medium-sized businesses. Another report by the International Institute of Economics states that 8.5% of businesses that export are less likely to go out of business. It's a staggering number. And if 96% of the world's consumers live outside the United States, then this presents a major market opportunity for our local suppliers.
So the next thing that we'll talk about is the Binational Technology Forum. And this is something that I am very excited about because I think it has the potential to grow, to have value to several different parties. So like I mentioned before, it will be co-led by the Binational Technology Council, and it will be a dynamic forum where experts can discuss the impact of advanced technology on business, workers, and society. This will, so we will be engaging different experts with a variety of perspectives to engage in conversation in one meeting. So we might hear from the workers, we might hear from the businesses, we might hear from the inventors, and the audience will be carefully considered as well, so that we have the right people in the room, so that we have the potential to have follow-up initiatives after each meeting. So what is the importance of adopting advanced technology? And we'll hear more about this from one of our speakers in a moment. But one key quote we found from MIT Sloan Management Review is that companies now face a digital imperative: adopt new technologies effectively or face competitive obsolescence. So that's a bit of a dim future for those who don't, but there's opportunities for those who do. Organizations using emerging technologies have grown their annual net income 80% faster than organizations not investing in those technologies. And 86% of companies say that AI will be a mainstream technology at their firms in 2021. So this is not a technology that's coming down the pipeline in 5-10 years. It's here now. And so it's imperative that we act quickly. And finally, 63% of executives believe that AI initiatives are required to catch up with their competitors. So again, digital technologies and a variety of other advanced technologies are useful. They're important to businesses, both to retain and survive, but also to remain competitive and to grow. The purpose of the forum, the Binational Technology Forum, is to encourage the responsible adoption of technology for greater business success, improvement of job quality, and improvement of quality of life. And some of those sample topics or questions that we'll cover will be: how can advanced technology be used to improve job quality? How are local researchers applying new technology for novel purposes? And what advanced technologies are local businesses deploying, and what are the pros and cons? So we will be putting together a planning committee. We have a variety of people who are already involved in that, and I'll get to that in a second. So here are the projected outcomes. We are expecting to provide content that is useful for policymakers, so particularly around workforce, which is, if you've heard of the phrase future of work and Industry 4.0, preparing our workforce for the skills of the near future, near and mid and long-term future is very important. And having the resources to do that is also very important. Another projected outcome is to encourage the responsible adoption of advanced technology. So doing it in a way that has the minimal amount of risk and the most impact to the company. Showcasing regional R&D activities and resources, letting companies know if that's something that they're interested in starting or growing at their own companies, what resources exist at their fingertips to help them do that, and encourage existing business to begin R&D or move their product development activities to the region. So several companies may be manufacturing in the area, do their R&D or design and prototyping outside the region. And so we want to be able to showcase that and encourage and demonstrate our capacity to do more R&D and design and prototyping. So as I mentioned, we will be putting together a planning committee. And these committee members will be curating forum events, including the forum topics, the questions, speakers, format, branding, and program logistics. So we do have a running start. We have a tentative agenda for the year. but there's a lot that goes into each and every one. And so if this is something that you would like to get involved in, please do let me know and reach out to me after this meeting. Okay. We have lined up a series of special initiatives that align with the Borderplex 2025 Ascend plan. At future meetings, we'll be giving you updates on all of these different initiatives, including who is involved, how do they work, and most importantly, how do they benefit the industry. And we want to highlight a few of the special initiatives that we have already begun that are underway. For the online supplier platforms, we have 2 projects that are currently underway, and we plan on providing more information on those in our next meeting. Under our manufacturing education program, we plan to build a regional manufacturing talent pipeline based on the Arizona Advanced Technology Network. This program is going to offer industrial technology certificates and also an Associates of Applied Sciences in Automated Industrial Technology. And finally, for the marketing, we plan on developing marketing materials based on the supply chain and workforce data that we gain from these initiatives for business attraction efforts. Through our business consulting services, this is going to be available to all local suppliers where they are going to be able to work one-on-one with members of our Borderplex staff to address challenges that they're facing in their business and ultimately get linked to different community resources that are going to be able to help them solve these issues. And we hope to have this up by June of this year. And appointments will be able to be made through the Borderplex website. On that same website, we're going to it's going to contain a resource library that's going to have information related to the association. It's going to have different print and video material that's going to be supplemental material to some of the topics that we talk about during the meetings, as well as some stuff that we're not able to get to during the meetings. And we're also going to have supplemental material for the Binational Technology Forum. We should start adding content to that by May of this year. So I believe that that wraps up our presentation on the scope of what we're going to be doing through the Supplier Association. I hope that you found something in here that you like to engage in, hopefully all of them. And so right now I'd like to open up the floor. If there are any questions about the anything that we're doing through the Supplier Association, please click on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen and let us know if you have a question. Okay. One question I'm getting, when is the next Binational Technology Council? The next Binational Technology, Forum is going to be projected to be at the end of April. So we will be sending out a calendar invite for that in the next few weeks. So please do keep an eye out for that invitation. All right. And who do I contact if I'd like to help with one of the special initiatives? You can contact me and we'll have provide contact information at the end of this presentation. All right, and what are some of the topics that will be covered in the special workshops that were mentioned?
So some of the topics that are going to be covered in the special workshops are going to be community bank export financing workshops, which we hope is going to be a dual program between the EXIM Bank and the SBA. We also plan on having a showcase of supply chain technology, which is going to feature some of the latest technology in supply chain logistics.
Thank you, Christian. Another question, can you expand on the manufacturing education program? Yes, so we are going to be focusing on, so this is a model that was created through the state of Arizona. They coordinated 3 counties in Arizona, and they've aligned their programs in terms of names, course numbers, content, everything. And they were successful in basically developing a very highly skilled and reliable workforce pipeline. And they've become the #1 destination for manufacturers in terms of talent, and talent being the number one thing that companies care about. And so that is why we are focusing on that, and we are planning on pushing that initiative. Will the resource library be available to everyone or just members of the Supplier Association? That it will be available to everyone. It's going to be on our website. We'll have a special landing page for the association, and that's where you'll be able to download or view videos, print content, and a variety of resources. What are some of the topics that will be covered in the upcoming Binational Technology Forum? Christian, you wanted to handle that one?
Yes, so some of the topics we're going to have is our first Binational Technology Forum is going to focus on telehealth, but we're also going to have forums focused on fintech, aerospace and defense, and machine learning for manufacturing.
Okay, great. And are there any other questions before we move on?
Natalie, I do see that you all have one extra question. Somebody is asking if it would be possible to read or obtain a copy of the 2025 Ascend Plan. And if I may, if you visit our website, again, borderplexalliance.org, towards the bottom of the screen, you will see the 2025 Ascend Plan link. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to download the full plan or the abridged plan of the 2025 Ascend Plan. So check out our website. And of course, if you have other questions, then you can feel free to reach out to the Borderplex Alliance team.
Thank you, Casey. Okay, great. I think we're ready to move forward to the really exciting part. Well, I'm very excited about this presentation. We have today with us Eric Miller, who is the Houston Regional Director for the U.S. Export-Import Bank. He is here to talk a little bit more about the importance of exporting to local companies, what the EXIM Bank does, and some of the specific programs that they offer so that you can begin immediately utilizing some of their resources in your own business. Mr. Eric Miller is the Houston Regional Director for EXIM Bank, and he spent over a decade in the private sector exporting capital equipment to buyers in 33 countries, covering the continents of Africa, Asia, South America, and Europe. As a prior customer of EXIM, he experienced firsthand how the government agency can be leveraged as a strategic tool to increase sales. So Eric, thank you. Welcome today to our meeting. We really appreciate you being here, and I'm really excited to hear your presentation today.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for the invitation more broadly to the Borderplex Alliance and the privilege and honor to speak with you guys here today. So if you haven't heard of EXIM Bank, we're basically, next slide, please. We're a small federal agency. We're mainly set up in Washington, D.C., and we have regional offices scattered throughout the United States, 12 in specific, that help exporters sell abroad. And one of the most common questions I receive is, why is the federal government involved in exports? What's the reason for it? There's a couple of reasons, but more, I guess, broadly for the exporter's benefit. And Christian pointed this out. I think he rounded up to 96%. I round down to 95%. But the point is clear. The majority of opportunities are outside the border of the United States. So if we take 100 customers in a room, it seems in the US, the majority of us are fighting over the 5 rather than looking at the 95. So it's like the red ocean versus blue ocean. The majority of buyers are outside the borders of the United States, and we want to help you reach those buyers. And that brings up the next point of why. Next slide, please. The why is because we're not very good at exporting. If you take our export value and put it over our GDP value, we're ranked 144 out of roughly 200 countries in the world. So let me say that one more time, because when I say it, it almost shocks me every time I say it. We take the export value, put it over GDP value in the United States, we're ranked 144 out of roughly 200 countries. So You've got Rwanda on the left, Haiti on the right. We're in between that. So we're not very good at exporting. I think our trade deficit last year was between $600 and $700 billion. So the 2 points that I want to drive on the why: majority of buyers are outside the United States, and 2, we're not very good at it. So if you just take those 2 pieces of information, that can become a U.S. company, a U.S. exporter, a strategic advantage, because the majority of companies in the United States are not exporting. As a matter of fact, we've got around 25 million, roughly 25 million privately registered companies in the US. As a percentage of those that export, any given month is going to be between 1% and 3%. Not a lot of companies exporting. Value of exports are not very good, and we're ranked low. So that brings up why the federal government is involved. We've basically created trade finance products to help US companies export and become more competitive. So agenda today, just want to give a brief background on who we are, what we do, and then go into the products specifically on how we can help a US company export. Next slide. So we're 87 years old. We're what's called an ECA, or an export credit agency. So every developed country in the world has the equivalent of us. There's roughly 115 out of 200 countries that have an official export credit agency, and their goal is the same as ours. We want to create jobs through exports. We want to help the trade deficit. We want to get more US made products and services into the hands of foreign buyers. We're an independent agency. So what that means is we're basically not inside a cabinet. We don't have a secretary over us like Commerce, but we do have political appointees as it relates to our chairman and board of directors. And we should be receiving our new chairman under the current administration, the Biden administration, very soon. As I mentioned in the intro, the majority of our employees are headquartered in DC, and we do have 12 regional centers where positions equal to mine are out there trying to promote the bank. We have roughly 500 employees at the bank, and there's maybe 60 to 70 of us out in the field. So I mentioned every developed country has the equivalent of us. Just to give you a sense of comparison, we're 500 employees in one agency. China has 3 agencies and 15,000 employees, last I checked. So they are much more aggressive in trying to promote Chinese-made products and offer financial packages along with that. Next slide. So here's the regional centers. I'm in the Houston Regional Center, and basically I cover the bottom half of Texas and all of New Mexico. So if your company headquarters falls within that geography, I'll be your point of contact. If you have a subsidiary in Houston, but the main office is in San Francisco, we would get you the regional contact for San Francisco, for instance. Next slide. Let's see. Okay, so there's the slide basically showing global competition as it relates to export credit agencies. These are just a handful. I think there's 25 of them here on the slide out of the roughly 115 in the world. And it just goes to show that every country has competition with us. Every country wants to sell their products made in their country to foreign buyers. Again, for the same reason as us. We want to create jobs. We want to help the trade deficit. We want to stimulate the economy. Next slide. So that brings us to, you heard a little bit about us, why we exist. How can we help you? Here's the bottom line. We have really 3 core products, and we'll do a deeper dive on each one of these. The first one is export credit insurance. So it's exactly how it sounds. If you sell a US made product or service to a foreign buyer and you give them terms to pay, we know that you can't always say cash in advance. Give me the money now, I'll ship later, or give me a letter of credit, which is costly. At some point in time, to be competitive, you have to accept the fact that you have to sell on credit to a foreign buyer to win deals. Well, you as a US company, that could be a little risky, right? If you put your product in a container and ship it, whether it's a boat or truck, or you put it on an airplane and say, hey, pay me 60 days later for what I just sold you. Well, what if they don't pay you, right? How are you going to collect? You're dealing with a different country, different legal environment, political environment, culture, currency. It's not going to be very easy to collect, right? So we get involved as the federal government and basically say, let us shoulder that risk. We will insure your foreign receivables. So that will give you more opportunities to sell abroad and less opportunities to miss sales. The second is access to export working capital. This is key. So you're a company, you manufacture, you sell abroad. You win a $2 million purchase order from a buyer in Mexico. You walk over to your bank and say, hey, got a great purchase order from a great foreign buyer in Mexico. I need a line of credit to fulfill the order. I need to build this stuff. The bank says, foreign country, Mexico, export, don't like it. But when you have a Houston purchase order, come back to see me. It's a problem. So we're, again, federal government filling in these private sector gaps. We don't compete with the private sector. We don't provide the money. We get you set up with a lender who will give you that line of credit, and we co-sign. So we're basically a guarantor of repayment to the bank. So we take the risk of repayment from the bank and put it on our shoulders. So we're mitigating that risk for the lender. So we open up access to export working capital. Domestic working capital, no problem. You can, as long as you meet the credit wherewithal, you can get that. But export is a lot more challenging. The third is a term loan to a foreign buyer. This is typically capital goods related. So you're selling, let's say, yellow iron, Caterpillar equipment. Okay, you sell a $1 million package to a foreign buyer in Mexico, but the cost of borrowing, it could be too high, or it's hard to access, or whatever reason. Colombia, where the cost of borrowing could be 16-17% a year. So if the opportunity could be lost, we can get a bank involved here in the U.S. and have them give a loan to your foreign buyer to buy your capital goods, and we're the repayment guarantor on that. So we're all about guarantees and insurance, not necessarily lending, but we work with your lender, we work with you, and we want to open up trade as it relates to finance. Next slide, please. So export credit insurance, let's do a deeper dive on that. What it is, what it's not. It's a risk protection. So it's really three areas that I want to emphasize. It's a risk protection tool. So if you don't get paid, if you sell on credit to your foreign buyer, you give them 60-day terms, you're selling 100,000 to Mexico, pay me 60 days later. They don't pay you, you put a claim into us, and we either give you 90 or 95% what's due to you. We have to approve you as an exporter and approve your buyer and put them in a policy. But once you have a policy, you're protected against non-payment. And it's a sales tool. So I talk to exporters weekly. Hey, I've been turning down all these opportunities abroad. They're asking for terms. They want to be my distributor. I just can't do it. I can't put $500,000 of product on a boat, ship it to their country, and hope that they're going to pay me 90 days later as my distributor. I don't know them. I don't know their credit. I don't know their wherewithal. How do I get my product back if they don't pay me? So we're not only protecting the risk, we're creating a sales tool for you. How many more deals, I guess, is the question. How many more deals can you win if you're insuring the payment with the federal government? And not only that, how much better are you going to sleep at night knowing that we've got your back on the payment? The third area of insurance is it opens up financing. So let's go to that same example. You walk over to your bank and say, hey, I got $1 million in foreign receivables to these 5 different countries, and it's tying up my cash flow. I got to make payroll, and I need a line of credit for receivables. Bank doesn't like it. It's foreign receivables. 9 times out of 10, they exclude foreign receivables from your borrowing base, so you can't draw down against it. So if it's insured, though, if that receivable is insured by the federal government, that opens access to finance. How does it work? It's pretty simple. You choose a policy. We have 4 different policies. I can help you kind of funnel down what policy would be best for you. You offer credit to your buyers, contracts in place, you fulfill the contract. Once the contract has shipped and it's fulfilled, you report it in our online system. You pay the insurance premium, and then you're covered. Buyer doesn't pay, you put a claim into us. Very simple, just like any insurance policy. Next slide. So the two buckets of risk that we cover is commercial and political. So the commercial side is going to be things like insolvency, bankruptcy, protracted default, which is a fancy way of saying more than 90 days past due. And that's a key phrase. So you sell on net 60 to a customer in Mexico, they don't pay on the due date. You're knocking on their door, net 60, hey, where's my money? We want you to try to collect for 90 days after the due date before you can file a claim. So that's the wait period, 90 days before you can file a claim after it's past due. And the reason for that is simple. We don't want to be a source for slow payment. This is really about non-payment. The political risk bucket is going to be things, as you see there, currency transfer risk. So you got a buyer in another country that's having trouble converting their local currency into dollars and getting it back to you. War, revolution, cancellation of these are less likely, still possible, less likely. Most exporters get a policy for the commercial side. Here's our different policies. Most exporters that are somewhat new to exporting on credit prefer our express policy if they have more than one buyer. So the green section, bottom one, express policy, you can pick and choose up to 10 buyers. And the cost, we'll get into that on the next slide, is going to depend on the term that you give to your buyer. Next slide. So here's the cost. Most exporters sell to private foreign buyers. So you go on the very right there, class 3 private, and you follow that down to the terms you're giving your buyer. So most I see private in 1 to 60 days. So if it's a 1 to 60 day term and it's a private buyer, you're looking at 55 cents per $100, or another way of saying that is 0.55% of your invoice. So $50,000 to go into Mexico on net 60, you're looking at $275 to insure 95% of your receivable. I'll say that one more time. You're selling a $50,000, you have a $50,000 invoice going to Mexico on net 60-day terms. The cost to insure 95% of the 50,000 would be $275, $275 to insure 95% of 50. Some of our eligibility requirements, you need to be in business at least 3 years, have a DUNS number. If you don't have a DUNS number, email me. I can give you a process to get one for free because you're doing business with the federal government. 50% US content. This is key to us. We want to create jobs here in the US. We don't want to support a transaction where you're buying from China, shipping it to Mexico. We want to create jobs in the home country. So for us to get involved and offer a policy, whatever you're selling, the cost of that product or service has to exceed 50% US content on a cost basis, right? So you're selling $100,000 and it costs you 70, we're going to look at the 70 and say 36,000 of it needs to be US content. So that's a lot about insurance. Working capital. So again, problem here in the US, you bring your PO to a bank, it's a foreign buyer PO, they don't give you a line of credit. So we step in as a co-guarantor and basically provide a guarantee of repayment, either 90 or 95% to your lender. There's no minimum or maximum. And basically you can use that line of credit to borrow against inventory, work in process, finished goods, receivables. We're even allowing purchase order financing right now during COVID time. So instead of using existing assets on your balance sheet to draw down, you can go out and buy stuff with the line of credit. You can also collateral. So again, problem here in the US, you want to bid on a foreign job and it requires a bond or a letter of standby letter of credit. If you go to the bank, they're going to say, hey, if you want me to send a $250,000 performance bond to Germany, you got to put $250,000 in your bank and I'll block that and use that for the bond. So not very helpful for the cash flow. So if you have this line of credit set up, you can use that line of credit to issue bid bonds, performance bonds, standby LCs, things of that nature. So you don't have to use your own cash. Next slide. And the last product is getting your buyer, your foreign buyer, finance. So the way that this process works, typically it's capital equipment. We did an example of Caterpillar equipment, drilling equipment, anything that has a useful life of 7+ years, for instance. So we can get a lender involved here in the U.S. to give if they meet the credit criteria, we can get them a loan here in the U.S. and we're the repayment guarantor to that lender. So the buyer in Mexico doesn't pay the bank back here, they put a claim into us and we pay it out. Step one, if you have an interested borrower, is to obtain the last 3 years of their audited financial statement. So we can kind of take a quick review and see if we can take it to the next steps, which is usually getting a lender involved. So we kind of pre-screen, is this doable? Is this not doable? And if it is, then we get a lender involved. But they do need to make a 15% down payment. The balance of 85% can be financed over 3 to 7 years. And we would have to show that 85% that we're financing is all US content. Typically, these are loans $1 million plus. I've seen them lower, 3, 4, 500,000. They're not super small loans. So again, step one is to get the last 3 years of audited financial statements. We'll take a quick review. Next slide. So here's some of our more broader restrictions. We can't support any military defense related products or obligors. So if it's a military branch of a foreign country or a product, we can't support it. The only exceptions are dual use, drug interdiction, and humanitarian. Now, I will be candid in saying getting any one of those approved is going upstream, not downstream. So it can be a challenge. Content has to exceed 50%, as I mentioned, on the insurance or working capital guarantee. We do have a list of countries. So if you go to exim.gov, and you type in the search field, country limitation schedule, it'll show all countries we're open in and all that we're closed in. The closed will be obvious. The open, we may be open in some countries, but there may be restrictions or limitations. And sometimes that could be hard to understand. So feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to elaborate further on what that means for you. Next slide. So that was a whole lot of information packed into a very short timeline. And I'll be happy to take any questions that you have, or if the time doesn't allow today, here's my contact information. Feel free to call or email me. Thank you all for being here.
Eric, thank you so much. That was an incredible presentation. So much information. I think since we are a border community, we frequently do business back and forth in the U.S. and Mexico, and all of your products are opening up access to more business just along the border, let alone to many other countries that U.S.-based companies may want to sell to. And I just wanted maybe you to reiterate that last product. I thought it was very, it was a valuable asset, given that it's financing for the foreign buyer. And so that sometimes can be a barrier as well, when there's maybe a lack of access to financing on the buyer side in the foreign country, and maybe in this case, Mexico, right? And so this program in particular benefits companies in Mexico as well as the United States. Is that fair to say? Absolutely fair to say.
No, you're absolutely right. And this product is missed by a lot of U.S. companies because it's for the foreign buyer, but it's technically for them because they're getting the sale, right? So if you're selling a product to a foreign buyer, and these packages sometimes can get pretty hefty in value for CapEx. Yellow iron can get pretty costly. So you're invoicing $1 million. They go to their bank in Mexico, and it's just hard to get that money out of the bank. Even though that they have good financial statements, they're audited, they're making money, but it's hard to get a loan sometimes in foreign places. I spent a lot of time in West Africa shipping CapEx to them. And I saw in West Africa term sheets that were 30% a year on the dollar. And when I told them, hey, if you've got a good company and good financial statements, I'll get you a loan in the US at a single digit government-backed loan. That's kind of two hooks in the sale, right? In the proposal. One hook is your product and your spec, and they like that. But the second hook is maybe I can get you finance. So it becomes a competitive advantage for the U.S. company to promote that as well. So I would say, even though this is for the foreign buyer, this is really for the U.S. exporter as well, because it's a promotional tool. It helps them win more deals. Thank you for pointing that out, Natalie, and emphasizing that product.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of companies could benefit from that. The other, I want to check to see if anyone has a question, please type that in the Q&A box as well. Okay, and I'll take the question. So I do have a question from the audience. On average, how long is the process to work with you all if we are just starting?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Startups are going to be challenging because there's no credit there yet. So the insurance, we need 3 years in business. The working capital guarantee, we need at least 1. And then the foreign buyer, at least 3. We say 1 year for the working capital guarantee, but the banks typically say 3. So it's probably safe to assume most products you need 3 years generating revenue before you can qualify. Unfortunately, there's not a good startup product, I guess, is the answer.
Okay, good to know. And so in different industry roundtables, I've spoken to people who want to do the exporting, but as well, so on the manufacturer supplier side, there's interest, but on the banking side, I know that companies or bankers have expressed interest in wanting to be able to do more financing in other countries, particularly Mexico, our neighbor, our friends. And this is an opportunity for them to maybe enable themselves. Is that correct? Because I think it could be, if I'm hearing you correctly, it could be the exporter that reaches out to you, but maybe it also could be a banking entity that could reach out to you to develop some of these products. And that way they're ready and able to go and finance exporting activities when a customer comes to them. Is that correct? Absolutely, yeah. So this can be a tool for the bank as well. The guarantee for the working capital or the guarantee for the foreign buyer loan, we're basically shouldering the repayment risk for the lender. So, for us to take away that risk, that should open up their interest to be able to do some of these transactions. Okay, thank you. Let me see if there are any other questions. Does EXIM provide any sales support to domestic companies trying to do business outside of the US? In other words, would EXIM help broker or assist closing deals with a foreign partner? Okay, so outside of the financial tools, the insurance on the receivable, the guarantee on the working capital, I would highlight one of the other government agencies that helps in this space is going to be U.S. Commercial Services, the Department of Commerce. So they have a really good product called Gold Key Service, and it's a matchmaking product. So you tell Commerce or Commercial Services, hey, I'm making widgets here in El Paso. I want to sell these to Colombia. And can you help find buyers or a partner? And they can do that under the Gold Key Service. So what they do is the U.S. Embassy here calls the U.S. Embassy in Colombia and tells them, hey, I've got this exporter here in Texas. Here's what they make. They want to find buyers or a distributor partner. And they basically play matchmaker. So they get you a list of qualified buyers or partners, whatever you're looking for, and do a matchmaking. It's more virtual now. It used to be you fly over there, shake hands, or they fly over here and shake hands. So it's more of a virtual setting now, but that's a really helpful tool. If you're only selling here in the US or you're only selling to Mexico and you want to go to another country, they have a really good tool for that. So I would highlight them. New Mexico and El Paso is a gentleman named Robert Queen. I can give you his contact information if you want to email me or call me and want help with that. Thank you, Eric, for highlighting that. And we plan to highlight a variety of these types of resources in future events, including U.S. Commercial Services, Robert Queen. I think we have a few others actually with us today who I plan to call on in the future so we can talk, have them present on these great resources as well, because I know particularly, how do I get started? How do I meet customers? That's one of the top things that people care about. And so that's definitely something that we will be talking about in future events.
Excellent.
If there are no more questions, I'll just say, Eric, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your time, all of your expertise, and we will be reaching out to you in the near future to have more deals with EXIM. So thank you so much for being here.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. My contact information is there. I'm going to drop off and wish you guys a successful rest of the webinar.
Great. Thank you, Eric.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. So the next speaker that we have with us is Charles Schultes with plastic molding technology. As you heard us talk about earlier, the importance of advanced technology is really widespread. There's important benefits to the company itself, and there's important benefits to economic development and our economic stability in terms of global competitiveness. And so this area of advanced technology is really key, I think, for the region, and definitely fleshed out and identified in our strategic plan. So Chuck is here to talk about that a little bit more in depth. Charles Schultes, or Czech, is the Chief Executive Officer and owner of Plastic Molding Technology, a Texas-based manufacturer of small precision-engineered injection molded plastic components used in an array of applications in diverse industries. Under Charles's leadership, PMT was named the Manufacturing Leadership Council's 2014 Manufacturer of the Year. Charles is a past board member of the Manufacturers Association for Plastics Processors and past member of the Borderplex Alliance Advanced Manufacturing Task Force. In 2015, he received the Business Management Award from the Society of Plastics Engineers. So with that, I'd like to welcome Charles Czech Schultes. Thank you, Czech, for being here with us.
Good morning, Natalie. John, Natalie, and Eric, it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for inviting me, and I intend to share some of the importance of advanced manufacturing and how PMT has adopted that technology within our operations to become more competitive on a global scale. Next slide, please. So a little bit about PMT, a little bit of background. The company is founded by my father in 1973. I'm a second generation owner of plastic molding technology. So I've got over 30 years experience in the manufacturing sector. And we are a strategic supplier to many companies in the automotive supply chain, electronics, and other industries, as Natalie mentioned. And our sole location's in El Paso, Texas, on the east side, and we operate in a 60,000 square foot facility. Next slide, please. So being located in El Paso, it's been great for us since we relocated from New England over 15 years ago. And we've got all the major highways and ports of entry to help us export into our customers' Mexican assembly operations. Next slide. So the three main reasons why I see advanced technology being important to manufacturers in our area. The first is global competitiveness. The second is operational efficiency. And the third is opening up new business opportunities. All right, next, please. So incorporating advanced technology is the first point. And if you elect to do that in your facility as a manufacturer, it'll help you compete on a global stage. In light of increasing competition, especially from China, and the rapid adoption of automation in China, they're going beyond their low-cost labor competitiveness as a country. U.S. manufacturers, I feel, really need to ramp up using the latest technology, or we're going to be left behind. Some recent information on a manufacturing survey. It's important to note 69% of manufacturers are planning to reshore production back to the United States, but only 38% were hiring. More than half surveyed are investing in automation. And I think some of the hiring issues that Natalie touched upon earlier is the need for a skilled workforce across the United States. In Texas, manufacturing remains an important part of the economy. You can see some of the major sectors there. And adopting new technologies can help you have an edge in those markets, sectors. So Texas has approximately, in this 2019 snapshot, 243 billion in manufactured goods. Another major factor impacting manufacturing is, of course, the pandemic. And there's been quite a few disruptions in the supply chain. And clearly the pandemic has been an accelerant to reshoring as well as nearshoring, as quoted by Paul Willener of Deloitte. If we don't invest in automation, we don't increase our competitiveness here. Next, please. So this opens a door for companies to begin to implement new technologies, remain competitive, adopting automation. It helps your operational efficiencies, and we're efficient, we're saving money, creating less waste, and running a top-tier operation. For example, my company identified a process that was a good automation candidate, and some of the details are there as far as reducing labor cost and production cycle time and scrap rates. Next, please. Another way to be competitive or more competitive is to invest in your workforce. And we've always been a huge proponent. It's one of our company values. It's not just for today, but for the future. Upgrading skills is required to adapt that new technology. And there's resources to help for that. And it's good to hear that Borderplex is looking at some areas such as associate's degrees in automation technology and so on. That's going to be very helpful. Of course, there's other resources locally, whether it's through UTEP or local high school districts or other EPA programs. So your people are important, but almost as important as your facility. So to set up for success, companies really need to make sure their operations are in order. And another key element is beginning to implement aspects of Industry 4.0 into your operation, like real-time machine communication, and also using cloud-based systems. Next, please. There's just a graphical slide of what Industry 4.0 is, going back from 1784, Industry 1.0, as they call it, to 1870, mass production. Industry 3.0 automation, 1969, and today we're in the midst of Industry 4.0 being adopted throughout the world, and it's certainly a key priority for some of our competitors, I should say competitive countries throughout the world. So adapting advanced technology also brings opportunity for business growth and profitability, and there's some examples here as far as reducing turnover rates and using a skilled workforce, and having double-digit sales growth, going back to being recognized by Inc. 5000 in 2019. And so we also have some other examples, like a Net Promoter Score, something we use at PMT to gauge customer satisfaction. That is also improved as we've gone year over year adapting some of these technologies. advanced technology at PMT. Again, here's some examples using automated process monitoring, working towards zero defects, the connected factory, the automation using cobots and robots, and of course, additive manufacturing. We also partner with the Keck Center UTEP, which is one of the best in class, outstanding additive advanced manufacturing prototype centers. Next, please. If you got any questions, please submit them, and we'll certainly make best effort to answer them. Here are some other examples. You might consider adapting or expanding your adoption of technology within your business. Go to your trade and industry groups, create local partnerships, pursue tax credits and rebates. We use an R&D tax credit through our CPAs, and then of course, incorporating Industry 4.0. As we get towards the end here, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to submit, and we'll be happy to answer. But thank you for your attention on, as a small business coming out and sharing some of our success using advanced technology in our business.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Yes, it's really useful, I think, to just see someone who's been very successful and continuing to adopt and adapt to new technology. I do have a few questions in front of me for you. How long does it typically take for a manufacturing company to incorporate automation, upskilling and purchasing included?
Well, it depends upon the scope of the automation. If you're implementing automation in a car assembly line, it could take years, right? But let's just talk specifics in our small business. Identifying the opportunity might take a few weeks working with a customer or your lean production engineering team. And then getting quotes might take another 2 to 4 weeks from automation experts. And implementation of an automated cell, let's say, for basic using feed bowls and some robotics and things and digital cameras for inspection. It might take 4 to 6 months to build that. So all told, I guess more simplistic answer, it might take at least 6 months to get your first automation effort implemented. If it's not something off the shelf, it's customized, which most cases it is. So hopefully that helps.
Another question, how have you utilized the TMAC program at UTEP?
TMAC we've used extensively off and on through the past 10 years, whether it's through value stream mapping, lean manufacturing, best practices, teachings, and there's just a whole array of things that they offer to improve your operations. So quality management systems, perhaps, whether it's automotive, medical, or environmental, like ISO 14000 or TS 16949. They've all been available to help us with those things.
Great. And last question, what do you attribute to your low turnover rate?
Low turnover rate. It's Natalie. It's a challenge nationwide for any business, any manufacturer. So we use a multifaceted approach. I think it starts with treating our team members with mutual respect. That's foundational, and then also investing in them for training and advancement within our organization. Those are some of the things that come to mind first. Providing full medical benefits, having competitive pay, time off, a lot of employee recognition we do. So we really try to utilize best practices, even though we're quote unquote a factory. We can't do some things that say or maybe in a strictly an office environment from a business standpoint. The fabled let's all go work at Google and we can play foosball and break and we'll have massages delivered to our offices. And there's some things. We really don't take advantage of to some extent, I guess, as far as engaging our employees and hopefully make their jobs more fulfilling. But factory's a little different. You report to the line, and you're pretty much focused on your job. But we do try to mix things up and provide a very positive work environment for our people.
One thing I'm personally interested in is you mentioned working with the Keck Center at UTEP. And so of course we know that this is a world-class 3D printing additive manufacturing center. And I believe they just expanded their capacity to a new building. And so I think some people in the audience may want to know, how are you working with them and what kinds of services are they providing to you to help you build your company? I think especially because it's a university, it's not another company or business by the traditional sense.
Good question, Natalie. We've worked with them for prototyping a new product design that a customer wishes to bring to market, or they work certainly with the defense and aerospace industry. They've got some really neat things they've done with respect to additive metal manufacturing. Just probably things like maybe rocket fin components or something. And our things that we've worked on may have been some actuator valve assemblies for an automobile or some appliance. So it really varies. It's up to your imagination, I guess, as a designer, of what you want to pursue for prototyping and production. But they do it in a very short amount of time, using some of these advanced manufacturing techniques. And again, I think additive manufacturing is certainly part of Industry 4.0, where you can basically print a part out of various material substrates, whether they're plastic or kind of like a powdered metal. And there's some tolerance limitations sometimes, but they're getting better and better, every month.
Well, I'm sure it does help them to work with you, as well as vice versa, you working with them. So that's very good to know. And I think I just want to note that in the future, we'll be showcasing regional capabilities, including universities from across the region who regularly have interaction with companies and maybe are able to offer some of their equipment and services for the benefit of local companies. But with that, Chuck, I just want to thank you so much for being here, and your time, your expertise as well. And thank you so much for your presentation. And if we have any questions come in afterwards, I will definitely send those over to you. But thank you so much for being here.
Very welcome. Thank you.
All right, Chuck. Take care.
Take care.
And so that really wraps up our presentation for the day. And just to close out, I just want to give you a sense of how our future meetings will be run. We're going to have meetings on exporting, completely dedicated to exporting, and the meetings completely dedicated to advanced technology, and we'll alternate the months. And then intermittently, we'll have special workshops and showcases for regional capabilities throughout the year. So that is what we've got going on in the next year. We hope that you are interested in one or more of these areas to engage in, and we will be sending out invitations to all of these events in the future as well. So before we close the meeting, I just want to thank you for coming. And we're going to have, as soon as we close the meeting, there's going to be a survey that pops up, and we're going to ask you just a few questions about which areas you'd like to engage in, if you'd like to, if we'd like us to contact you on based on special initiatives. So please stay on as we close the meeting and answer the survey. But thank you so much for being here, and we hope you enjoyed the presentations, and we look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you. Take care.